I love you.
Welcome back to the Couch Potatoes. Plenty of room on this big old couch that spans countries even. Countries, I dare say.
Oh my god. What a big
Indeed.
couch.
Come on in, have a seat. I am the Green Traveler from Gorsh.
I am the Faceless Leone, and this is Bridge of Couches 2024.
Name change. 2025, though.
Oh, you're right. Shit. I'm just...
You're stuck in the past.
hoping.
Hey, the world's going to shit, but this has been a good year for me.
I know that's true. And, you know, I will say that I have been less depressed this winter than I have in the last, 8 winters.
That's very fair. I hate the snow, though. I'm so tired of the snow.
I like the snow. That's the only good part about it.
I hate it.
But my dog likes
People
to
are all
play
like,
in
it's
the
so
snow.
cute. It falls from the sky and it looks so pretty. And I'm like, you're right. It does look pretty for 10 seconds. And then it hits the ground, soaks up all of the dirt and grime from our air, and sits there for 10 more weeks looking brown and muddy and gross, and it doesn't go anywhere. And then you're driving and you're slipping and you're sliding, and it's not fun at all. Nobody likes it.
Okay, but see, and, you know, not to brag too much, but I got a backyard, and watching your dog run in it is pretty fucking great.
I've enjoyed my dog run in snow for 9 years. I don't have a good backyard, but that is a pleasure. I will admit it is fun watching her dive in and out of the snow. I can agree there.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It sucks.
I've always liked the snow, dude. I used to lay outside by myself when...
Butt naked?
No, not butt naked. I was all bundled up, but I would lay there and I'm like, this would be a great time for a nap. And, you know, looking back on that, I might have been dying.
See, that's the other thing about snow is people, even the people who love it, you're not touching that shit with your bare hands. You can't truly love something unless you can get that skin-to-skin contact. And if you're just like, you grab snow and it hurts you. It just hurts you.
I put my polymorphic willy right in it.
You got that antifreeze in you.
Yeah, I do. Sweet blood. So we're gonna get way past that, I think. This is
oh god, yeah. Let's go for a segue here.
Faceless on the Couch, a podcast about movies and TV, and we're here because we usually like to do something for Black History Month, but this month in particular, I wanted to do something because on what I always felt was a very important day of the year for our country, Martin Luthor King Jr. Day, we had something else pretty big going on, and everybody really cared about that for some reason, but nobody cared about this person who really helped change the world. It was a martyr for his cause. And
he's a very important figure,
American
not only
cause.
in American history, but just in history in general.
Yeah.
And he's, I don't know, there's so many good stories that come from his life, so many inspirational tales and just speeches and quotes and everything. But instead we had to listen to an orange douchebag take over the country and become a king. So
yeah. It's been good.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Us Americans are just so happy. So very happy.
Yeah.
We worship the monarchy we've become.
Oh, yeah. Anyhow, Jeffrey Wright plays Martin Luther King Jr. in Boycott. So we're going to be talking about Boycott today. It is a very focused film on...
Very old film, 24 years old.
Yeah, that is true. It's 2001. This is really before I had much awareness of Jeffrey Wright. And I do think he's quite good.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest up front. There's not that much to talk about in the film. I mean, we're going to talk about the events that take place, but I feel like as a film, it is kind of just... there are some good things to its style that I'll talk about later, but it didn't quite
there's
land
a few
for
things.
me.
Yeah. I can agree with that. It didn't, yeah, exactly. There's a lot that they do, particularly with the voice of the black people that are presented in the film. They do a lot of like small asides where they'll be talking directly to the camera and everything. And I think that was very impactful.
Yeah.
But as you said, it didn't land. Like
it
was really
there was something not quite hitting with that for some reason. And it might
They kept taking me out.
Yeah. And I don't mind being taken out if it's for a purpose, and it was obviously for a purpose. But it did distract me. And I think another part of that was that there are like several different types of film that they use throughout the movie. Like, I swear, the screen ratio changes at certain points.
Yeah. In
the film.
It definitely does. It's really jarring, but like I kind of understand what they were going for.
Right.
It's directed by Clark Johnson, and I can't honestly for the life of me tell you anything that he's done.
I can't.
I'm sure I could look it up, but the name doesn't ring any bells. Jeffrey Wright as Martin Luther, I think he does a great job. Yeah. It's a very he's always wondrul, but like again, as you said, I didn't know who he was when I was 8 years old.
No,
I don't think he really entered my mindset consciously until Westworld.
Yeah, I think that's probably it for me as well. But I've been very interested in his career since then. I didn't watch that movie that got really good reviews, but that was just pretty recently. You watched it though, didn't you? The Jeffrey Wright movie with, I think,
Batman?
No, not Batman. I don't know. I think it might be an alien movie, but I might be confusing it with something else. Anyhow, there was a movie that came out that he was was apparently very good, and I haven't seen that yet, but I have enjoyed basically everything I've seen him in. I think he's a very interesting character actor. He was in Rustin, which we did last year, and he played another civil rights character. But I think that's interesting that, he has a record of being pulled into films about the civil rights movement. And I think that's because I think he works in that era because he kind of has an older man's air about him. And I've had people say that to me as well. In fact, a quote was, "Blake, you have the grandeur of a wizened grandpa."
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I laughed, and I was like, I get it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Did they mean withered? I'm just kidding.
Thanks.
When it comes to a Martin Luther King Jr. movie, like, this is going to sound rude, but I don't mean it to be rude, but they're all kind of the same. You're pulling tales from about the same period of time.
Right.
All these events are happening around the same time. So you get a lot of the exact same stuff. You get his wife getting nasty phone calls and his whole family being threatened. These beautiful sermons that he delivers at church. Mm-hmm. You get
always a favorite
him sitting around in cigarette smoke filled rooms chatting with all the other individuals that are part of the civil rights movement that are big heads and big leaders of the whole thing.
Strategizing.
Yeah, like it all kind of just blends into the exact same story, and that's not an attack or a nitpick or anything, because again, there's so many different tales you can tell from this man's life that and all these tales happen at the same time, basically, that a lot of these events are just going to blend into each other. Right. And that's kind of what I felt like with this story, was as I was watching it, it just felt like another Martin Luther story, which is still good, but it definitely, once you've seen about 50 different Martin Luther King Jr. movies, you're just kind of sitting there like,
right.
I've seen this before, I think.
Is that it almost always is a side character. Because when I looked up to try to find films that focus directly on Martin Luther King Jr., it's this and Selma.
Yeah.
That's basically it. And I think that's sad. And I think,
It
might be because people, for a long time probably were worried about hurting his reputation in any way by trying to humanize him because, you know, he was a human being and it's pretty well known that he had affairs, extramarital affairs. That really hurt his reputation at the time. So I don't understand why people think that would hurt his reputation now. He still did all these great things, and his wife always stood by him. His wife being Coretta Scott King. Coretta Scott King, who was played by Carmen Ejogo. I'm actually not sure. She's a British actor, and I know I've seen her in other things. I guess she was in Selma. She also was in The Purge Anarchy. His wife was in The Purge Anarchy, just so you know.
I love that. I've only watched the first Purge.
I haven't watched any Purges because I know, like...
You only need to watch the first one, I think. I guess Purge fans will correct us in the comments on that.
So the only reason why I chose to do this one instead of Selma was we've already done Selma.
We've already talked Selma.
and anyhow, I will come out and say that Selma is the better film, and this is a film critic show, but I do like that this film focuses very narrow compared to a lot of civil rights movies. Because they try to get like a whole bunch, like a whole year or two in. But this is basically Martin Luther King Jr.'s step into leadership. Like he was already a community leader as a reverend, but he is now nominated to be the president of the Montgomery Improvement Society. I think that's what they call it. Montgomery Improvement Association, the MIA. That's how I should remember it, because missing in action, which is an interesting coincidence that I wonder if they did on purpose, because, you know, a lot of missing black people.
Sadly, yeah.
Anyhow, that's another thing that I wanted to bring about the film that I thought was, I don't know if disappointment is the right phrase, but there was a lack of brutality. And I know that, like, we don't necessarily want to see our black citizens brutalized in film. However, it's a historical movie about a very violent time, and we shouldn't sugarcoat it. We should not.
Well, I mean, even like what you, before we started recording, I mentioned that I didn't really remember the ending. I started to a little drift off and pay attention to other things near the end. But you mentioned that there's a moment where, you know, they go towards modern day. Yeah. And Martin Luther is like talking to other black citizens and everything, and like a cop goes by and waves or something. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's not happening in today's time.
They do their siren for just a second as they're driving by, and they stop, and Jeffrey Wright and these guys he's talking to look at them, and they just, both of them do a 2-finger wave at them and then drive on. Like almost like a salute. And it's like, you know, okay, that's cool and all, but I mean, I guess a lot happened in 23 years. It's not like that. But, you know, and it did seem like that it was a little bit better for a little while, for like maybe 5-10 years there. I mean, it's just, we've forgotten is what it is. The people who are alive in this time and making the steps to change things, most of them are gone. Now it is their children who, you know, maybe didn't have to like fight as hard. That's their great-grandchildren.
That's fair.
But I do think that their children and grandchildren became complacent. Not the civil rights people, direct descendants, I'm sure. But I'm saying the people of this the time period, the couple generations before us, they just started not to care.
Complacent.
That there were dividing lines between them and other parts of their society until it built up hate again. And not to say that the hate ever went away, but it did seem like we were progressing, and I am sad at how far it seems we've fallen just in the last 12 years. It's just
it's been really bad. Yeah, and as a trans female, I'm not to tie my experience into the black experience, but like this time around, I feel that hatred far more. I can, at the beginning, 2016, I was starting to understand more of who I was, but I didn't experience the hate that I knew was there as much as many others did. But this time around, I get that experience a lot more. There's a lot of individuals who will come into my place of work and they are not quite happy with being helped by a trans lady. Yeah. Let me tell you.
It's terrible. It's just like,
it's a scary time.
Can't you just be with a person for a moment and then go live your life? I just don't get it. But I've never been a hateful person. So there you go. So let's try to dive a little bit more into this film. And I think the best way to do that is talk a little bit more about the cast. So we have Terrence Howard. I've always thought was a very interesting performer.
Original War Machine.
He was the original War Machine, that is right. And then for some reason became Don Cheadle. I'm sure something happened that
for some reason became a Skrull or a Kree or whatever they are.
Oh, was he in it later? I didn't notice that.
Have you seen the
Secret Invasion?
Secret Invasion. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I don't remember seeing him as a Skrull.
Whoever the shapeshifters are, he's
the Skrull. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. That was the big twist of Secret Invasion, was that Don Cheadle's been a Skrull ever since he got paralyzed.
I see. Ever since Whiplash is what you're saying. Ever since the second movie?
No, ever since Civil War.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Civil War's when he fell from the sky.
That's right. Well, anyhow, he's playing Ralph Abernathy, a fellow Baptist minister, has his own congregation. And they do some talking about the differences between their preaching style right at the beginning of the movie. They're at a dinner together. And he says, all you have to do is get up there, take in as much air as you possibly can, and then let the Spirit move through you, and you say whatever comes out. And he says, this being Martin Luther King says, well, my congregation's come to expect a little bit more than that. and I just like the way that Jeffrey and Terrence, their chemistry was right. They ribbed each other, and you could tell that they were good friends. And I liked their relationship through the film. And there is a lot of other important civil rights activists, that is, including E.D. Nixon, who basically was the main organizer of the MIA. Was a big help in making Martin Luther King.
Did you explain what MIA was?
Yes, the MIA is the Montgomery Improvement Association. And just to nail that in your head as a history lesson, these people worked hard. And anyhow, they did. They were not missing in action. That's right. They were not missing in action. They were taking action by doing nonviolent protests. Anyhow, E.D. Nixon, he was a big proponent of Martin Luther King's leadership working. Obviously, we all remember Martin Luther King, and I don't think it's just because he was assassinated. I think it's because he truly was a great leader and had a wisdom to him that they needed in their main leader. He had a peaceful nature to him as well. And there are times, like you can see this in other films more than this. There are times in Martin Luther King's story where he gets fed up with it, and he is considering going and kicking somebody's ass. His friends have to talk him back from that. I appreciate those humanizing times. What they do in this film to make Martin feel like a human being is that he does not expect to be the leader of the MIA at all, but they ask him to do it. And he thinks about it. He thinks, what would I want for my congregation? He wants them to have equal rights. So he jumps on board, and the first thing they're tackling is the bus boycott, and this is after the arrest of Rosa Parks. This is what starts this in Montgomery, Alabama. So
Rosa, played in this film by Iris Little Thomas.
Thank you. And yeah, she doesn't have it. It's not highlighted, so I can't look at her picture, but that name sounds really familiar. Okay. And I do also feel like she looked like Rosa Parks. They usually do a pretty good job of finding somebody who looks like her.
Yeah.
Anyhow, if you're not aware, this being a pretty international show, or if you're just ignorant enough to completely ignore civil rights history, in the South, for a long time, there was segregation in several different states in several different forms. And in Montgomery, Alabama, and a lot of other places, the buses were segregated. The front was the white section, the back was the black section, and there were open seats in the middle, but black people had to move if white people wanted their seat. These rules were strictly enforced by the bus drivers.
Yes.
They were very brutal, and they would occasionally take people's fare, and another part of the rule was that they had to pay the fare up front and then exit the bus and then get back on in the back entrance. I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's the original purpose of having two entrances on the bus. Now, safety reasons, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, sometimes the drivers would just drive off once they got the fare.
Yes.
You would give them their fare.
I didn't finish that.
They would start walking towards the back, and the driver would just boom.
Yep, and it's awful. And so this is happening all the time, and eventually Rosa Parks refuses, and she gets arrested. She refuses to move for a white person. And she was already an activist at this time. And I guess it made the papers. I'm not sure if she was directly involved with MIA, but she was a member of NAACP. She did work with Martin Luther King on the bus boycott. Their idea is, okay, we are not going to ride the buses until they make the bus system fairer. And they weren't even asking to end segregation. They were asking for a better system.
And this boycott would have worked really well from a conceptual standpoint, like before it even happened, because African American and black people made up like roughly 80% of the fares.
Yeah.
They were the ones who were riding the bus everywhere.
That's right. So there was a lot of empty buses.
Specifically in Montgomery.
A lot of empty buses, and this, the city noticed very quickly. And so they do bring them to the table to negotiate. But they're always bringing people onto the board, this council or whatever, that they were not told, being MIA, would be involved. And then they also keep on changing negotiating down. And
Yeah.
at some point, they even negotiate a deal that would be even worse. They're like, they're trying to strong arm them.
I don't remember one of the guys' names. I mean, it doesn't matter either because he doesn't need to be remembered. But one of the guys that was brought to the table was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Like, those are the kind of people that they would, I don't think it was the Ku Klux Klan. It was some other white nationalist group.
It was the white citizens movement, I think.
Some racist bullshit group. Yeah.
White Citizens Council. Disgusting.
Disgusting, indeed.
It sounds like something what's so disgusting about it is that it sounds like something that we're going to hear about here very soon.
Today. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it'd be like trans people trying to get equal rights, and we have to talk to J.K. Rowling about it.
Yeah. Jesus. Well, everything's going to go through Elon.
She owns it. She owns the media.
So
we can't make Harry Potter without her. No, that's not true, actually. She made Harry Potter using other people's shit.
That's right. It's very, very similar to The Worst Witch.
There's so many things it's very similar to.
Yeah.
That's not a... Yeah. It's not a very original concept, and then her writing style itself isn't that great, so...
No. But it's a shame.
That's right, I said it.
It's still a shame.
Try to read a Robert Galbraith novel and tell me if you actually find yourself interested. You won't be. It sucks. Try to read The Current Vacancy and find yourself interested. You won't be. It sucks. She can't write.
Not so secret review of J.K. Rowling. We're talking about this film some more. I feel like we've made a lot of the beats because it is a lot of back and forth with them in this board. Now, there are a lot of threats obviously being slung at the Kings and other people in the movement. And there are some things that happen that are very scary. For one, somebody throws a bomb at the King's house. Coretta and their baby are there. So that's very scary. And there's a whole mob of people outside his house. This guy who's the head of that board that we were talking about, I think he might be the mayor of Montgomery. I'm not sure. And then, several police officers were there ready to fight these people, which they would have been, killed. I mean, there was a lot of people there. Martin, comes out and he's like, no, we're not going to meet this with more violence. We're not going to do that. And that's what was, something that was great about him. However, I do want to mention, because he is in this movie, he gets a lot of that philosophy from his friend and NAACP member Bayard Rustin. I was trying to find the cast, but I'm in the history page instead of the film page.
Oh yeah, Eric Dellums.
Thank you very much. So we talked about Rustin with the film that we highly recommend. I highly recommend. That's on Netflix. He was not only a civil rights member, but he was also queer. He had to take it from both sides. And I did not mean to have that sound like that, but I'll keep it. Hey, you know what? We're queer, so...
Yeah, I am, yeah. I'm in my first ever true lesbian relationship. That's lovely.
I'm very happy for you.
Yay for being trans, finally.
You are. So,
hey.
Bayard, though, he really brings the Gandhi philosophy to Martin Luther King. Not that Martin Luther was a violent man to start, but he really strives home at why nonviolence is so important and why it works so well. And it did work because, I got to grow up and not worry about the fact that I had black friends in my class and didn't have to worry about people throwing bottle cans at us. And if they did, those kids would be in trouble. But I bet kids are getting away with shit now that's terrible. And
Yeah, there's some awful stuff going on that's really hard to...
It's hard
the news
to
is
swallow.
just impossible to watch.
Yeah. But we did think it was very important to talk about Martin Luther King because it did not feel like we celebrated him here in this country. And yes, we are not a part of the Black community, but I personally grew up in a very mixed community, and I think that it's sad that we're taking away all these protections for these people, the good people that cannot help that we have made them the pariah of society. They can't, that's not their problem. I mean, it is, obviously, but it's society's problem. And we're just going to sweep it back under the rug or shove it off the edge. I don't know. This is a very
We're probably just going to be on
episode.
fire for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're sorry that this episode is a downer, but maybe we could talk about our thoughts on the film a little bit more in our closing statements.
Yeah. I like the film for its message. I like the film for choosing a very, very fascinating portion of Martin's life to focus on. I don't feel like there's a lot of movies about Boycott, like about the Montgomery bus boycott specifically. Can't imagine there's that many other than just this one.
Well, I imagine,
but there's so many.
There's a Rosa Parks movie out there, I know, but
yeah, there's gotta be, or even a Doctor Who episode, if you will.
Yeah.
But like it's the movie itself is kind of bland. It's kind of run of the mill. The acting's all good. Everybody does a great job. I think Jeffrey Wright does a really good job at getting Martin's intonations down, his speech fluctuations and his patterns.
Yeah.
Not as good as who was it in Selma?
Oh God, yeah, but
David Oyelowo?
Was it? Oh man, I don't remember, but he was very good.
It was David Oyelowo.
And he does...
And I'm saying that wrong almost certainly.
He does a fantastic job and honestly maybe looks a little bit more like Martin Luther King. Wright, but
which is fine. I
feel like Jeffrey Wright looked really comfortable in this role.
Yeah, he definitely did his research, and I think he delivered pretty well. But for the most part, I understand why I haven't honestly seen this movie before, because it's kind of just this sounds so awful, and I'm so sorry, but it sounds like the movie your substitute teacher would put on in history class.
It does. It's a very safe movie.
It just has that vibe. Yeah, exactly. It's very made for TV friendly, which isn't a bad quality, but I will only give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's still good. It's just
this is a good movie to introduce your kids to that concept, though. Of hey, we used to be really terrible to black people in this country.
Yeah.
Hopefully it stays used to or gets better. But
it's like, I know all the books have been burned and all the history books are being rewritten right now, but let's remember what actually happened and not the bullshit that they keep trying to tell us happened.
Shit. Yeah. Well, did you give it a rating?
3.5.
3.5. That's pretty good. I will give it a face and a half because I do recommend it because of its focus, really. Like, it's hard, like, he did this stuff for a long time. All of these people in the movement, they had years of work to make things happen and get better for their people. The only way that we really get to see that in film is usually a biopic that spans somebody's entire life or their entire work through the movement. That's really condensed. So I appreciate this film for being really focused. But yeah, there is a little bit of lacklusterness to it, and I'm not sure why. I think some of it was intentional to try to make you remember that this is stuff that actually happened. It's not a fictional story. I think that's what they were going for. But I didn't quite land for me. However, I did like a lot of the things that were said during the asides. Give it a face and a half if I didn't say that already.
But yeah, that's been the show.
Yeah.
As always, head down to patreon.com/greenandfaceless. Check out our tiers. Think about donating to LA. They still need help.
They do.
Recovering from the wildfires. And there's even, being Black History Month, I think it's important to say that there's a lot of Black families that have been not relocated.
Displaced.
They've lost their communities. They've lost their housing, their communities in LA.
In LA, yes,
because of the fires. And there's a lot of charities that are specifically about helping them out, helping those communities out. So, check it out. It doesn't even have to be LA. Just there's a lot of communities throughout the whole country that need help. So, not just in Black History Month, but throughout the whole year. Check it out and be your best. Be the best you can be.
That's right. And, be good to your friends and watch out for each other. We love you.
We love you. Stay safe. This whole world sucks, and we need community as much now as we ever did before.
That's right.
I'm the Green Traveler from Gorsh.
And I am the Faceless Leon. Safe travels, and good night. Green and Faceless on the Couch is a proud production of FictionWorks 19. Are you a fan of the show? Feel free to contact us at greenandfacelessfans@gmail.com or visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/greenandfaceless. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, or rate us on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for listening.